officially launch.
In this charter, launched and disseminated today, government commits to keeping Uganda's debt to GDP ratio below 50% and the fiscal deficit at 3%. Government figures put Uganda's debt to GDP ratio at 49.9%, expected to rise to 53.1% later this financial year, before gradually falling below the 50% threshold.
And we are not yet there, which means that we can sustainably pay off our debts. Nobody is running after us for debt repayment. We are paying as and when they fall due. We are still capable of doing that. We are not yet in a crisis.
The fiscal deficit stood at 7.3% as at end of last financial year, and Minister Lugoloobi says they hope to lower it to at most 3% between this financial year and the 2025-2026 fiscal year. But how will it be done?
Of course, you do investments. We want at least 50% of the population being able to pay taxes, both direct and indirect taxes. That's why you see interventions like the PDM aimed at making sure that nobody is left behind.
Achieving that will require fiscal interventions like massive investment in productivity and widening the tax base, which have proved a challenge in the past. Opposition and members of civil society have raised concerns over what they consider excessive borrowing, a concern that's been dismissed by government, which now looks at oil production starting 2025.
For oil, we have been investing very heavily, and we are about to reap from that investment. Come about 25, 26, we should be able to get our first oil.
Oil sales are expected to earn Uganda an average of $2.8 billion annually, part of which, according to the fiscal rule on petroleum revenue management, will be used for budget financing.
And that's not small change. 2.8 billion, probably equivalent to about 10 trillion shillings. In a budget today of 80 trillion shillings, 10 trillion from one area alone is a big contribution. Of course, we are not going to spend all this money into the budget.
Now, the rule for how much goes to the consolidated fund is what was launched today, which is 0.8% of the previous year's non-oil GDP outturn. Yeah, and it's the maximum. It's not that you must take it all. Depending on your need, you can take it all or you can take less.
Works in the Albertine Graben are reported to be progressing according to plan, with the hope that the first oil dollar will hit the account in 3 years. Edward Muhumza, NTV.